This is Bible and Watercolor with Amanda Pence. Today, I'm painting a torch to represent Deborah. She's introduced in Judges 4 as a woman of fire, or it literally calls her a woman of torches. So that's why I'm painting a torch. Deborah was a woman of fire. She was a woman of light. She led God's people. She was a judge. She was a prophet. And she was very important in the book of Judges and in the story of the people of God. I'm going to be doing a series here in Bible and Watercolor on the book of Judges. The book of Judges is a really dark, heavy book. There's a reason we don't study it that often. And so just be aware of the trigger warnings for this book. Judges has a lot of violence, and especially violence against women. So be mindful of your mental health. The book of Judges is after Joshua, and it tells the story of when the people of God, the Israelites, were moving into the promised land, the land of milk and honey. As you go through the book of Judges, you see things get worse and worse. And there's this cycle throughout the book of Judges where the people sin, they become oppressed by their enemies, so they cry out to God. God raises up a judge to deliver them, which leads to peace. And then when the judge passes away, the people forget, and so they sin again, and then they're delivered into the hands of their enemies again, and the cycle continues. And the structure of Judges is super interesting. So I'm going to go a bit out of order in these videos, but I'm starting near the beginning today with Deborah. Her story is in chapters 4 and 5 of Judges. And as I mentioned before, she is introduced as a woman of torches, a woman of fire, a woman of light, of flame, and she was leading the people of God. Her name can mean to lead or pursue, or it can also mean honeybee, which is some clever imagery. Deborah, the judge and prophetess, leading God's people in the land of honey. And she was holding court under the palm of Deborah in the same region where Samuel would later serve. She was very important, and there's no sign of any kind of like, oh, well, she was chosen just because there wasn't a man to do it, or anything like that. The introduction to Deborah in Judges 4:4 could be translated, Deborah, a woman, a prophetess, a woman of fire, she herself, she was judging. And so it really emphasizes that she was a woman. And as you go throughout the book of Judges, you see the treatment of women is really reflective of the state of the people of God. Now, if you look at Judges 4:4, your translation probably says something like, Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth. And that's translated this way because oftentimes women in the Bible are introduced as the wife of someone. But there is no separate word for woman and wife in Hebrew. And so to say the wife of, you could also translate it as the woman of. The translators just have to kind of use context clues to try to figure out how to translate it, whether they should say wife or woman. The translation wife isn't the best translation here because Lapidoth wasn't a name, and it wasn't even a man's name or a masculine word. It is a grammatically feminine word that means torches. And so the better translation is the woman of torches. Now, some people, if they want to be snarky, might say, oh, well, she was the wife of a woman. She was a lesbian, right? Because Lapidoth is a feminine word. And so if you're going to translate or interpret Lapidoth as being a person's name, it would be a woman's name. And so one technically could translate Deborah's introduction as the wife of a woman's name. That's anachronistic, which means projecting modern ideas onto the text. If someone wants to say, oh, Deborah was a lesbian because it says she was the wife of a woman, that's projecting our modern understandings of how relationships work onto the text. What is more likely going on here, especially if you come from the background where you're trying to find the original meaning of the text, like the author's original intent in writing it, that's my background. If that's your goal, it makes more sense that she's being introduced as someone who is a very important leader in Israel, who is authoritatively giving guidance to God's people. So one day, Deborah said to Barak, the Lord commands you to go and fight this battle. We're going to go defeat this guy Sisera. And he said to her, if you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go. She said, certainly I will go with you. And she said, but because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. And this is often taught as being like, oh, well, he was a wuss and he needed a woman to come with him. So he lost the chance to have the honor from this victory. But in the Bible, the honor is supposed to go to God, not people. And so I think that actually he was supposed to do this. And I think that Deborah and Barak are actually a really cool picture of how men and women were created to help each other and to work together. You see, in Genesis 2, when God created the first two humans, it says that no suitable helper was found for the first human. Helper means ally. And in the Bible, it most frequently refers to God's own help for his people when he comes to rescue them when they're in trouble. So to say in Genesis 2 that the woman was created as a helper for the man is talking about how she was created to be this strong, powerful, indispensable ally who's supposed to rescue him. And I have other research that's going into more detail on this, but looking at this relationship between Deborah and Barak, for the man to say, hey, I need my strong helper ally there with me, and for Deborah to say, certainly, of course I'll come with you, is a picture of humans living according to God's design. And then because he called on an ally, allies are there to help you, and they may deliver the decisive blow, and that's what happens in today's story. And that's great. You want your allies to help you out. This disdain for a woman gaining the honor of the victory is, again, being anachronistic. It's taking our individualism and projecting it onto the text. It's saying, of course, this person as an individual should have honor and glory for this. But humans were meant to be in community with each other, to help each other and bring deliverance to each other, including people of different genders. And so Deborah went with Barak, and they had the battle, and Sisera, the guy they're trying to defeat, he's escaping into the tents of some people who are not Israelites. and he thinks they're going to hide him. And so he meets this woman named Jael, and she's like, "Oh yeah, come on in here. I'll hide you. Have some milk." Land of milk and honey, right? Notice the imagery. So anyway, Sisera drinks the milk. He takes a nap, and while he's sleeping, Jael gets a tent peg, and here's where today's story gets violent. She takes a tent peg, and she drives it into his skull, and so he dies. So Jael, a named foreign woman, brought deliverance to Israel. This is something you see throughout the Bible, where women are bringing deliverance. They're active in the story. And we also see throughout the Bible where there are outsiders, like foreigners, like Jael, who are working to bring about God's purposes and to save God's people. After the battle was won, in Judges chapter 5, there's a song about the victory, where Deborah is described as a mother in Israel who arose to save the people. Jael is praised. And in the victory song, there's a section that seems a little curious. Here's today's trigger warning for violence against women. There's this bit in the song talking about Sisera's mother. And, well, here, I'll just read it. Judges 5, starting in verse 28. Through the window peered Sisera's mother. Behind the lattice she cried out, "Why is his chariot so long in coming? Why is the clatter of his chariots delayed?" The wisest of her ladies answered her, "Indeed, she keeps saying to herself, are they not finding and dividing the spoils, a woman or two for each man? Colorful garments is plunder for Sisera. Colorful garments, embroidered, highly embroidered garments from my neck. All this is plunder?" This song is setting up the difference between how the people of God operate and are supposed to operate versus how the people of the world operate and how the Canaanites operate. As you go through the book of Judges, you see Israel becoming like Canaan, like the people around them. And this picture of Sisera's mother, the bad guy Jael defeated, of his mother saying like, "Oh, why is this taking so long?" And the wisest woman, her wisest advisor, is saying, "Oh, well, he's finding and dividing the spoils." And she's saying, a woman or two for each man. Or literally, that's a womb or two for each man. Like literally just reducing women down to their body parts. The Canaanites are talking about women like their colorful garments, just something they're going to wear as this display of their might. And as we go through the book of Judges, you see the people of God increasingly treating women more like objects than like people. They become like Canaan. They become like the world around them. And so this is a refrain we'll see throughout the book of Judges, like, a woman for each man, or like, where will we get a woman? And that's kind of the direction the book of Judges goes. So we'll see as we're going through Judges, it gets really dark. I do recommend studying Ruth and 1st and 2nd Samuel along with the book of Judges, because even though there are a lot of dark things in those stories as well, some of the scripts from Judges get flipped. There's a story in 2 Samuel 20 where the commander of David's army, Joab, comes up to one of his own cities to attack it. But a wise woman comes to the wall and tells him not to attack because this city is a mother in Israel. Notice the callback to the imagery in Judges 5 in the song. Deborah was said to have been a mother in Israel. And the wise woman of Canaan had some bad advice and some bad things to say. But what does the wise woman in the people of God in 2 Samuel say? She comes to the wall and tells Joab not to attack because this city is a mother in Israel. And Joab listens to the wise woman, and the city that is the mother in Israel stands. And just a heads up, that's not how Judges goes. Judges opens with Deborah, a mother in Israel, arising to save the people of God. And it ends with the Israelites attacking their own cities and taking their own women as plunder. It's horrific. We need to read the story of Deborah in context with the rest of the book of Judges and with the rest of the narrative of Scripture. And so this is the story of Deborah and Jael and Barak and how they defeated Sisera. The woman of light, the woman of fire, of flame, Deborah, delivered God's messages to his people. She was a strong ally to man. The named foreign woman, Jael, worked with Deborah and Barak to bring deliverance to God's people. This is the model for how things should be. This isn't like just, here's a story of how it happened to have gone. As you look through the book of Judges and look at the story and see how things break down as you go throughout the book, you see Deborah as the model for how things are supposed to be. This is the story that we are comparing the rest of the book of Judges to. When we're thinking about the story of Deborah, we need to recognize that she's only shown in a very, very positive light, and there is no indication that she wasn't supposed to be doing the things that she was doing. She was a leader, she was authoritative, she was a prophet and judge, and served in the same region as Samuel. She was a big deal. The Holy Spirit does not discriminate based on gender, and neither should we. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next watercolor video on the book of Judges. Thanks, friends.